I think we were basically saying that, creatives kind of exist, the zeros and ones people and the mega alien creative people, if they're on like a sliding scale,
Yeah,
you
opposite
know,
ends of the spectrum
and we were trying to figure out how to deduce like what makes us or where we are on that
on that
continuum
spectrum.
almost. And I think that if you're in the middle, you're smack dab in the middle, you kind of have the ability to be creative. You may not be like alien, super like wild
Right.
creative, but you're able to make compelling pieces of artwork. And you also have this sort of like anthropological ability to kind of look at how culture and the time period you exist in.
It's very much like left brain versus right brain. One is very zeros and ones, black and white, linear thinking, and the other is like extremely abstract,
Right.
where it's like you're jumping from one thought to the next, and a lot of times there's no correlation between thoughts, but somehow it makes sense and from a creative lens. And I think the conversation was more just like it's difficult for both ends of the spectrum to be understood and relate to people,
Right.
because it's like, because you're so far away on either end, your experience and worldview is different than the majority of people's, and it can make things difficult when, like, especially when it comes to like collaboration or like sharing ideas.
Sure.
And I think the conversation was more about like commenting on people that we have encountered in our personal lives
Sure.
that land on that, and like just navigating, how do I work with this person to get an idea out? How do I, like, if they tell me this statement, what do they actually mean
Right.
versus like what they're saying? Because like a very conceptual person will only be able to think conceptually, and like a very analytical linear person is most of the time only thinking literally.
Right. And that's like, I guess the best kind of where we kind of fit into is trying to reconcile those
Both.
two brains or ways of mode of thought, because like you said, the conceptual thinker is existing in vibes, almost like
Right.
feelings.
Yeah, like I feel like with being creative, just a creative person, which it's so funny because like I listened to the Ryan's episode,
Yeah. Enough.
and like I agree with like the label of being a creative. It's like, what the hell does that even mean? Um, but I mean, obviously it's like it's tossed around, especially like in a corporate system, which I mean, obviously I'm in, and there's a creative department, and I
Yeah.
love how you put it too, where it's like, oh, those are the crazy people over there, like,
Mhm.
they'll go do like the flowers and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies,
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, like, I don't know what they do, it doesn't make sense, but sometimes when we need them, we'll tap them and
We'll
like,
tap 'em, yeah.
hey, make the magic, do the magic thing.
Do that stuff you guys do over
Yeah,
there.
do that stuff, do that thing over there.
Sprinkle some sauce on this
Right,
whole
it was just
campaign.
so funny because it like I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about it, and it's like it makes zero sense. Like creativity, and like, for example, like my brother's a nurse, right? So um the job is completely different in terms of like stress and like the goal or the objective, the responsibilities that you have.
Mhm.
And like, because sometimes like I'll encounter stress through the lens of like, oh God, I have to like be creative again. Like, I don't even
Sure.
know what I'm doing. Like, we'll see what happens. Like, hopefully I catch lightning in a bottle. I don't know. But it's like that relative to saving lives. It's like, this is so silly. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, what are we even talking about? But it's an interesting thing that I think is so difficult to explain to people. It sounds silly, it sounds stupid, and it is, but it's also so much fun. And I feel like it's like tapping into something else that, at least for me, like the way I view like business, right? Like I'm in a corporate structure, I'm in a creative department, but it's like, what am I really doing? Like, what is my actual goal and my place in this system?
Yeah.
It's like a business exists for what? A product or service to do what? And usually, at least this is my perspective, it exists to answer something for a person on the other side, right? Your audience, whoever that is. And our last conversation was, or times that we've talked about it, it's to answer the question of like, what the hell am I doing on this floating rock in space?
Why are we
Why
here?
am I alive? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
And it's like everything else comes from that, which is interesting because going back to like the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like
Mhm.
the hyper creative is very much in that world of like, you know, rainbows and butterflies and like
Yeah.
nonsense, but trying to make sense of the nonsense.
Frequencies.
Yeah. And then like the hyper literal, analytical, linear thinker is more of like the practical, rational mind of like, hey, it's the zeros and ones on the piece of paper. And like, it's like, it's
Just
math.
blocks,
Yeah,
building blocks, bottom
exactly.
line.
And it's like, you need both, right? To get an idea out because you need the innovation
Yeah.
from like the thinking, but then you also need the execution and like, how is this thing actually going to come to life? And be an experience for people. But tying it back to the business thing, like I think that, at least the way I see it, many times people forget that the only reason a product or service exists is to fulfill something for a person. And in my opinion, it's very deeply rooted in emotion and trying to answer like questions of identity and purpose. And because it's like brands like, for example, like Nike or Vans, like growing up, right? Maybe this is less true now with like Gen Z and social media and all these like, there is no like specific style because everything has kind of been broken up into these like sub categories. But at least when we were growing up, right? It's like if you wore Nikes, that signaled something. If you wore Vans, that signaled something.
Right.
But it's like that, the only reason those signals even exist is because the business or the product, it's a mix of like the rationale of why it even was brought to market to begin with, and also like who the brand exists for, why it exists. And then on top of that, it's like culturally, what else is going on? Did the cool, you know, rapper, musician that I follow wear like the new Nikes or did they wear the Vans? And then
Right.
it's like, what does that signal to me? Like, depending on how I want to see myself in life, because we're all, again, trying to answer what the hell am I doing on this floating rock in space? Why
does
am
it
I alive?
mean?
What's my purpose?
Mhm.
I want to live a life like well lived. What does that mean? It means XYZ. It can mean money. It can mean I need to make the most amount of money. It could mean I want to make friends, relationships. It could be family. It could be a variety of different things, but all of those categories fall into like values and what matters to people. And I think that's where, in my mind, creativity is able to help bridge the gap. Going back to the whole like two sides of the spectrums, either being like hyper literal or hyper conceptual.
Mhm.
In the past, I used to struggle, and I still do, to communicate sometimes with people that were more literal thinkers, because I would be over here like, yo, bro, like, can you imagine? And like this, and like the way this texture looks, or the way this picture makes me feel, like, do you feel it too? And people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know?
Well, like, because again, like you said, on the spectrum, you have the zeros and ones people who were very practical and grounded in the A to B kind of journey of conversation and responsibilities when it comes to projects or creating art or what have you. And you have the opposite, which is, I think genius is like talent is hitting a target nobody else can hit, and then genius is hitting a target nobody else can even see or imagine or understand. So, the people that are like the Picasso level, alien level artistic
Mhm.
folks, they're hitting targets nobody else even imagines that there's even a target to hit, right? So, sometimes I think our minds, maybe if we dare to say, sometimes can be in that frequency, but then we have to realize true branding and marketing, the most successful versions of that are bringing that frequency of the alien level, genius level target hitting, and then being able to communicate it across the entire spectrum of people that
Right,
exist
right,
that are also the zeros and ones people and
right.
everything in between,
It needs to
you
be
know?
digestible for
And
sure.
because I think we have the superpower of being somewhere in between that, I wouldn't say I'm Picasso level creative, you know? I'll speak for
Mhm,
myself.
mhm.
I'm also not a zero and a ones person to the T.
For
I
sure.
don't like graphs and stocks like that in terms of the
Yeah.
fun part of it. So the middle part is really being able to understand what the real average emotional experience is for a person just navigating Earth, and then taking the left extreme part of that spectrum, the right extreme part of that spectrum, and figuring out how to explain that or give somebody the experience that they're looking
100%.
for.
I feel like me and Daniel talked about this too. I feel like he's really good at this. I think we all kind of have that in common.
Yeah,
Like, and maybe that's a big reason to why we're friends. You know,
absolutely.
um, it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to understand, or even maybe not fully understand, but try to understand both sides.
Mhm.
Because I mean, ideally, right? It's like if you're making something, you do want people to experience it, enjoy it in to some capacity, especially if it's like less about art and more about making like a functional, you know, product or service for people.
You want it to be useful.
Yeah, you want to be useful, exactly. And I think that has everything to do, again, going back to the question, what the hell am I doing on this floating rock in space?
Right.
Why am I alive? What's my purpose? It's like that is an answer. That is an answer. It's like I want to be useful. Here's this crazy idea.
Yeah.
It was in my head and now it's in real life, which by the way is like one of the most amazing feelings to have
Yeah.
as a human being, is like having an idea and then being able to carry it all the way through from inception in your mind to actual reality in person, and then having someone else have like an experience with it.
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, that is just doing this. It's just a handshake
Right.
saying, "Oh, I
see you."
understand you."
Right.
And that's I think the end in and of itself is just human connection.
Yep. I
Like
think
that's
so.
the whole point.
Yeah.
That's like actually the nirvana.
Yeah.
Depending upon how high of a high that is, it's just the levels of art and the ways in which that handshake happens.
Right.
You know?
I also feel like, going again back to like the two sides of the spectrum, like you absolutely need both and everything in between. Like I'll use like Steve Jobs as an example, right? Whether or not he himself was the creative visionary, at a
Right.
minimum, he had the skill of understanding how to recognize talent
Yeah.
in people and have the vision in his mind, even if people didn't quite understand it yet. Because it's like, what the hell was an iPhone before it got
Right.
made? Like nobody could have conceptualized what this thing was. Like it's like
There was no target that existed.
yeah,
yet.
there's no target that existed, and like there's so many things like this that exist. I saw something recently that was, it was saying like, it's like the older you get, you kind of start noticing that all of the things that exist in life, it's a passion project from somebody. It's like this camera that we're recording on, these microphones, like that jacket, these chairs, like someone had to think about this
Right.
and be like, I want to make that. How do I go and make that? And I mean, oftentimes like the first people to innovate and create a new thing are the crazy thinkers that are like
Yeah.
on like the abstract, because it's nonsense. Like what the hell was a car when there were horses? Like it
Right.
makes zero sense. And I think like that, you need those people, but on the flip side, like when it comes to like actual practical use, and it's like, okay, what are the resources that we need? You know, where is this going to exist? How are we going to build all of the steps in order to create this thing? That's where you need the people that are more linear thinkers and more practical about and rational about how to make things, because a lot of times it's like two different worlds. You need the crazies
Yeah.
and the people that are grounded in like
Reality.
the Lego bricks. Yeah, the
Yeah.
quote unquote reality. Exactly.
And you know that's a really interesting and precarious situation, that phenomenon of having to take those two sides of the spectrum and make them dance together.
Something that happens a lot now is there's a lot of people that, you know, are cosplaying being like this creative person, but really all they're doing is just copying something because they want to be cool, or like they want to be seen as the guy or the girl or
They're just
whatever.
LARPers.
Yeah, and
They're
it's
just
like
LARPers, bro.
it's like a lot of people don't have like that creative backbone and like believing in like what the idea or vision is.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. And I think like for us, like we had the luxury and the privilege of kind of just being ballsy and exploring like creative like nonsense when we were teenagers that made zero sense. And then like we went after a thing. So at least like in my mind, like that checkbox, you know, got X'd out, or like that light bulb went off of like, oh, this is what it's like to go from idea in my mind, inception, to like trying to bring something to life. And I believe in it because I feel it. It's like ingrained in me. And I think like that, whether it's, you know, being a teenager, for me back in the days doing the music stuff, for you like the early days of like film or whatever it might have been,
Right.
it's less about the music or the film and more about like the actual process of getting the idea out and that realization of like, oh, this is what it means to go from vision to execution.
Right.
Versus, because it's like, if you skip that and you just add money or pile money on top, then it's like, what are you actually even doing?
It's like you're trying to lift like 400 pounds on a deadlift, but you don't have the muscles to even like facilitate that lift. Like just for example, like you just said, when I was starting to make videos and I was doing photography just in the beginning stages in high school and college, you can be a fan of other people's artwork, and you can figure out by the inner kind of monologue and inner conversations and with yourself as to why you enjoy a Christopher Nolan film or a song by Prince or Yves Tumor, Adrian Gamboa, so on and so
Hey,
forth, right?
yeah.
So you can figure that out in terms of what you like and why you like it. But like you said, in terms of execution of mind to the full product or the idea realized, actualized in the tangible matter, during my come up, it was like figuring out the physics of an idea and how it translates in reality.
Mhm.
Because you can have an idea, visual image of something that nobody's quote unquote done before,
Yeah.
but it might be distorted because you don't know how it's going to actually transfer onto real
Right.
picture.
I
So
I
everything
get what you
from
mean.
lighting to the way that like light falls or the way that perspective is, you only know that by putting in the reps of actually putting a camera there, looking at a monitor
Yeah.
over and over again, and then your ideas start to kind of adjust because now you have a language of physics in your mind as to how something's actually going to play out
Yeah.
in practicality.
It makes you really good at making decisions quicker
Yeah.
from a creative point of view. Whether it's business or just in general, going from idea to execution of building a thing. I think and tying to the LARPing thing and cosplaying, it's like a lot of times people will have money and they think like, oh, just because I hired people to do these things, I am now also just like all those people that build stuff.
Yeah, like
It's
osmosis
like,
or something, right?
yeah,
Association
it's
almost.
like, and I think the more important piece is doing like the internal, almost soul searching.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the same question, as cheesy as it sounds, it's like, what the hell am I doing on this floating rock in space?
Yes.
Why am I alive? What is my purpose? And like, what's the story I'm trying to tell? And in an attempt to relate to other human beings. Um,
I
yeah,
hate the fact that I'm going to use the word frequency probably at least 10 times in this, but I think it really boils down to that, like your activity, like what your actual activity is, like what you're doing in life kind of then is your choices and how you look and what you do, what you eat and consume and what you drive and everything else are an extension of that.
that
So,
question.
with
Yeah.
the subcultures, like let's take running, for example,
Right.
like Nev,
Hmm.
like Ryan Everez, for him, he has such a cool aesthetic and such a cool vibe because he's in like a running kind of situation. He's an athlete.
Yep.
He's got the tattoos. He's always like really cool Nike kind of shoes. He's lifting, so he's kind
Right.
of ripped or whatever. He's got all this kind of vibe to him, but he's also kind of a creative.
Right.
That's like an aesthetic of somebody who does those activities.
Right.
So how he looks is just an extension of what he's doing. Same thing with, rowing or sports is the easy thing.
Yeah.
That's not like racing, for example.
Yeah.
Like Adidas, there's like particular Adidas shoes, and they have like soles that look like a tread on them.
Hmm.
Drivers wear those. But now, as a fashion statement, it's kind of been like a fashion situation or phenomenon for anybody just to kind of wear that as like a lifestyle shoe.
Yeah.
I have those. I mean, I like to drive spiritably, of course, but I'm not a professional race car driver or whatever. That's what that stems from, though.
Yeah, I think you brought up contrast too with when you were talking to Nev, and that's something I think about too. It's like I feel like the best creative ideas, it's usually rooted in like a human insight, something that it's like one of those things that, and now like you see it all the time online, where like maybe it's like a meme about an experience that you had growing up, and then everyone in the comments is like, "Oh wow!" Like that moment when you realize we've all had the same childhood, for example,
Right. Yeah.
right? It's like those types of feelings and moments exist all over. Like
Universal.
there's human insights in everything. It's like whether it's an experience that you have with, it could be like some memory tied to clothing, or it could be like a sports moment from like, playing baseball or playing catch with your dad, or whatever. Like there's like on a human experience level, there's all these insights. And I think the best ideas, it's like picking out a thread from an insight and finding the connection on like through humanity.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, just for interest, because we're so overloaded with advertising and all these things, all this noise, especially with the internet.
Yeah.
Throwing contrast in the mix is what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
And then now it's like instead of doing the typical angle, using film as like the metaphor, now we're gonna do like some crazy shit and like do like
Right.
something unexpected, but you're still gonna get the message, and that you're gonna have the aha moment where it's like, oh, I feel seen. We are not that different.
Right. That's one of the most beautiful feelings is when you can arrive there. That's a great idea, is when you can
Right.
have those elements there. Because like you said, again, it's how do you make the nostalgia, the familiar, uh, be extraordinary, you know?
Yeah.
So you kinda have the commonality, the relationship with your target audience from the nostalgia, from the familiar, and you turn it on its head. You show it in a way that's not normal, that's unconventional.
Right. Well, like, I mean, this isn't the best example, but I'm gonna share it just to like give an example
Mhm.
of how that comes to life. Like one of the most popular marketing or advertising campaigns, the Got Milk campaign, which I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know if you remember, but
of
in
course.
grade school, in the lunch cafeteria, there'd be like these big posters, Got Milk, right? And back then, like the brief or like how that even started is milk sales needed to go up. And the main communication is like milk is good for your bones, right? And like all, and it's
Yeah,
like
sure.
it didn't connect. So then the human insight was people do drink milk, but when do they drink it? And like how do they drink it? Oh, like if you follow that thought, you land at milk goes with things.
Right.
Milk goes with coffee, goes with your pastry, your donut,
Mm,
birthday cake, whatever, cereal. And it's like, what happens if you don't have milk? Which is why the line is
right.
got milk. And then it lands better because then it's like if you were the kid that grew up, or you're like, go down the stairs, you get the cereal. Everyone has had that moment of like, damn, the milk ran out. And I just poured the bowl of cereal and like, what am I gonna do now? So it's like it lands because the human insight is like we have this shared experience,
Yeah.
and then the contrast is the visual mustache, right? It's like this is just interesting to look at. Like
Mhm.
what? Um, yeah,
That's also based off of scarcity, really,
for sure.
like the supply and demand. I
FOMO.
hadn't ever thought about it that way in that context. It's
Yeah,
like the lack is
is the message.
the message.
Yeah,
You know, what happens when you don't have it? So
yeah, and it's funny because like in usually in people always try to defer or defer is not the right word to opt for communicating a product benefit immediately versus going for a human insight.
speaking of like the question, the existential question, what are we doing here? What is this floating rock? What do you have an answer to that for yourself?
It's something I've thought about. Um, lately I've become even more curious than before. With people like Virgil Abloh, for example, like something that I've thought about is like just reflecting on my own personal journey, like from teenagehood, doing music. It's like, why did I even care to start doing music to begin with? What did I learn? What did that lead to? Like, and even just thinking back to like at the time, that era, a lot of times it would be entering a room and getting hit with like the common question of like, how's the music going? Right.
Mm,
And it's like being seen as Adrian equals that rapper guy.
right.
Right. And like now it's like obviously professionally, I've had the luxury, opportunity, privilege to be able to do really cool shit and be able to be creative and touch like campaigns on a commercial level, oftentimes like nationwide, like big stuff. And in my mind, I feel like it's the same thing. It's the same thing that I was doing from when I was a kid. It's the same thing. I remember when I was like 5, 6 years old, I used to like write my own books on like white piece of paper, draw it, color it, and then I would staple it together and show my mom like, look, I made a book, right? And in my mind, it's like I've never not done those things. So music, for example, was just a chapter or like a small little phase but I'm still doing idea, real life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who knows? Like the next thing might be maybe I start making furniture or like, I don't know, like some just building something else. So
Sure.
like that's kind of how I conceptualize what my answer is I see myself as just this hyper curious kid at heart that just wants to make stuff, get my hands dirty, play with the metaphorical Play-Doh, give me the crayons and the blank piece of paper and let me get to work. And I think that's something that I has resonated with like Virgil, for example, like his story, how he started with you know, architecture school.
Right.
I mean, he didn't label himself as an architect. He didn't
No.
even label himself as like designer.
Yeah.
He just made stuff, and he made a lot of stuff, like a bunch of random things, everything from album cover art to T-shirts to shoes to
Just DJ.
yeah, to DJing. So it's like that's how it makes sense to me. It's like I exist to just bring things that don't exist yet into reality. And that's it.
I think that's beautiful, man. Yeah, I think that's the key. Oddly enough, my first ever cease and desist letter was for a name of my production company when I was, I think, like 15. And I just started to do my little film festival run for my short films. And the name of my company that I didn't realize you're supposed to trademark things or have rights to things before as a kid. It was called Renaissance Man Productions.
Mhm.
Somebody close to me had explained what it meant to be a Renaissance man.
Mhm.
Which was, you had different trades and different skills and abilities, and you were competent in different lanes um, and disciplines. And I think to some degree, in this weird place that we are in 2026, I think a lot of us who really care about that experience from idea to tangible matter, I think we're sort of Renaissance men again. I think we're kind of experiencing somewhat of a new Renaissance because we're, maybe for better or for worse, having to be competent in many different kinds of lanes. Um, Once again, it's funny because I love the fact that when I talk to you, I talk to Daniel, it's a very similar experience just talking to Neb as well. So it's fun that all these kind of 3 interviews came together. I
Right.
think we spoke about that because as of late, if you're in like freelance land, you're kind of having to do multiple different things and be
Right.
competent in different lanes, with photography and direction and some graphic design.
Sometimes
And
design.
you kind of have your primary skill set that's like your powerhouse. Like, so for you, that's it would seem to be creative direction, but when you make it a very specific lane, it's graphic design
Right.
and music. So you kind of
Right.
have two very strong disciplines there.
Right.
So I think that's really that's maybe what my answer is to that same question about where are we and what is this floating rock we're on. Um, I think I just like making handshakes, as many handshakes as I could make with people through what I make
I like that.
of hey, I see you, I understand this experience, whether it's on an empathetic level or even a sympathetic level. It's uh, the the, the painting where it's like God's and
Right.
man's hand
I
trying to
love that.
connect.
Yeah.
You know.
Empathy, man. Empathy is so important with creativity.